So today I'm talking to George Waker, who's a building surveyor. He works for BLB Chartered Surveyors locally, and himself and his colleague Grant Crossley have been very supportive of Shoreham Academy and the students. So it's a real pleasure to talk to George. George, thank you so much for your time today. And I love your background. You've obviously got a very professional office environment there.
Yeah, that's it. Keeping with the theme of building surveying, keeping it professional. So yeah, good to meet you too.
Excellent. We were talking offline about work experience and the chance for students to see what you do, and I know that that's going to be a problem for a while. So my first question really is, what does a typical day look like to you, and what kind of environment are you generally working in?
So a typical day for me as a building surveyor can vary. No 2 days are the same. I deal predominantly with projects, so small to medium-sized projects. In terms of value, they can be anywhere from 20,000 up to £1 million. And these are sort of external, internal refurbishments, alterations. Such projects include, I've got a project currently down on the seafront in Brighton, above the Globe, an old pub. But we're doing a external refurbishment there. So that's, one part of the job. But the other part is sort of spent in the office, perhaps writing a report. Maybe I've completed a condition survey or a building survey. So looking around someone's property, perhaps prior to purchase, they want to know the condition. So I'll be writing reports. Or party wall matters is another thing we deal with, perhaps where someone is looking to extend to the back of their property. And before they do that, they need to get relevant permissions. So there's a mixed bag dealing with a building surveyor. And that's sort of typically what I deal with. But, there are different surveying routes. So there's not just a building surveyor, there's a residential surveyor, there's a quantity surveyor, there are project managers, and they all intertwine as well. Sometimes you'll find a building surveyor, quantity surveyor are working together on the same project. But generally that's what my day-to-day task involve. And I'd say usually I spend about 65% of my day in the office, and I'd say I spend the other sort of 35% out the office, seeing projects, meeting clients, meeting contractors. So it's quite an autonomous role, quite a hands-on role. So if you're not someone who wants to spend all day in an office, it's certainly keyboard bashing. It's certainly a good, it breaks up the day, which I quite enjoy as a building surveyor. So yeah,
so you get that mixture of the administrative side of it and the actually going out there, meeting with clients and doing the boots on the ground stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Wearing PPE, wearing all the equipment, using surveying equipment, looking at damp or measuring buildings, providing expert advice to clients on any defects there may be. So yeah, very, very much hands-on, looking at opening parts up of a building, and looking really how buildings work, their structure. So yeah, very interesting and multifaceted.
Sounds fantastic. And I think for a lot of our young people, they'll have heard the word surveying, but it doesn't mean a great deal to them. I know certainly for me, I would think of, if I was selling or buying a house, I would understand where a survey comes into that. But as you say, there's so much more to it than that. And I'm guessing that BLB have surveyors, have different types of surveyors working within the same organisation.
That's right. So you can get smaller, just residential valuers who, as you say, deal with just if you want to buy a house, they'll do what's called a home buyers report. But we're a multidisciplinary firm, so we've got quantity surveyors, we've got structural engineers, and so it helps when we're working on a project. We can all work together. I can get expert advice from a structural engineer to help provide me input. So there's lots going on projects or works you do where you need to speak to other people, and get advice on how to do something right. But yeah, we're a multidisciplinary firm.
Fantastic. And you talked about some of the things you do in your day. What would you say are the parts of your role you enjoy the most?
I would say, like I say, sort of the autonomy. I'm able, I'm in charge of my workload. If I need to go out the office to complete a survey from speaking to a client, maybe a job I've brought in, you know, I have that flexibility to control my working hours, where I book appointments. I'm not confined to working in an office 24/7. I have to write this report, you know, here, every day, speak to clients. It's different elements and it's broken up. I also enjoy the fact, the thing I enjoy most is probably the project side of being a building surveyor personally, and completing a project, you know, starting from a project, meeting the client, you know, giving them the sort of expert advice, and then completing a project all the way through, overseeing that project and seeing the finished product of that project, you know, seeing it finished, seeing it newly decorated, seeing the repairs you've done. Perhaps I might have done an internal alteration somewhere, had to move a partition wall or reconfigure a room, and I've had to put design input into that, and then seeing the finished project and you know, seeing that the client's happy with the work I've done is the thing that interests me most. But also the ability, I think the great thing about being a building surveyor, there's buildings everywhere, all around us in all different countries, and there's all different methods of construction, from, you know, more traditional, you know, we've got Regency period properties in Brighton, and you've got these traditional construction methods, but you've got all these new buildings coming through, modular construction, etc. And it's interesting to find out, you know, what I suppose is common knowledge to me, sort of the layman wouldn't know what you're talking about, and it's good to have that expert advice on something and be able to provide that advice to clients, or, you know, informal advice to friends perhaps.
And what's great is it's clear that you really love what you do, you're really interested in what you do, because I think that's something we always try and get across to young people. Always try and find routes that you're going to enjoy, because you will work for many, many years of your life. And how wonderful if you can say, I enjoy it every day, I learn something new every day, and clearly, you know, you love what you do.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's sort of part of my interest and my passion is sort of, you know, a second, you know, an ulterior motive. I enjoy it as a career and as a job, but it's also something that, you know, I'd like to do on the side. I'd like to, I've always wanted to invest in property and, you know, build a portfolio. And so the two sort of go hand in hand. And I think that helps maintain my interest. And yeah, certainly I think it helps to have, you know, an interest in what you do, because it just makes it more enjoyable.
Oh, definitely. It makes life better, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Definitely. We were talking the other day, George, about the sort of the core skills that we use at the academy, and how we help young people to develop themselves with their soft skills, because obviously jobs will change, what you need will change, but understanding who you are as a person helps you identify the jobs that you are going to enjoy. And I did ask you, I gave you a little task to choose the 3 skills that you felt you use the most in your role. Can you just talk us through what those 3 are and why?
Yes, so the 3 I picked were listening, speaking, and problem solving. Listening and speaking sort of, I felt, go together, sort of communication, but as a building surveyor, you're acting as a consultant, you're giving advice to clients. So you need that ability to be able to listen to your clients' requirements. You know, if I go back to dealing with a project or doing a condition survey, you need to know exactly what they're looking for, and you then need to relay what you can provide. So as a building surveyor working on a project, I'll be able to advise my client, actually, you know, perhaps you need to do some repairs here, here, and here, or perhaps a specific procurement route or tendering strategy maybe needed to be implemented, and I can advise the client. So listening and speaking are massive, I think, in all job roles, and particularly we spoke briefly about interviews as well, and you know, that goes into interviews as well, being able to articulate clear and concisely what you can do, what you can provide, and being confident. You know, don't be scared to be confident, and show your personality when you're speaking as well, because you know it shows a lot about yourself. And the third one was problem solving. Again, as a building surveyor, if I'm going back to a project, you may find you come across an issue on that project. Perhaps the budget has been slashed on the project and you need to value engineer the project to still meet the client's requirements. So you then need to be able to problem solve. You need to come up with solutions for your client to be able to still complete the project or still complete whatever the work is you're going to do, whilst being able to meet your client's requirements, and problem solving is a massive part of that as well. So those three were my key criteria, I would say, from the list as for being a building surveyor, and that would certainly help.
That's really good to know, and as I say, it just helps young people to identify the sorts of roles that might suit their own character. So that's really useful. Thank you very much for that. So we talked a little bit about how much you love the job, but what route did you take to get into surveying? You know, was it something you wanted to do very young, or did you kind of find it a little bit later? And could you cover a little bit about the training that you've been doing to qualify as well?
Sure. I actually, at school, my interest was in art, and believe it or not, I wanted to become, I was leaning towards sort of fashion design, because I liked art. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I liked art and clothes, basically, and I put them together. I was like, right, I'm going to be a fashion designer. But I mean, my mum used to make handbags, and she sort of said to me, you know, do you even know how to sew? And you know, you may be good at art, but you know, the reality is this something you actually have a passion for? You say you like it, but is there a real passion? Is this something you do in your spare time? And it was never something I never looked at clothes really in my spare time. So I was sort of shaped by my parents' influence, to be honest, and that led me through a role after completing A-levels to complete a building surveying degree at Brighton University. So I completed that, and then after that, that sort of led me down a route of finding a job at first, I actually didn't get straight into building surveying. I found I went into a estate agency. I always knew I wanted to work with property because my parents had a sort of a side property business, and I always knew that, you know, I'd like to have my own portfolio. I'd like to be involved in properties one way or another. So that's where the building surveying degree came in. I became an estate agent for sort of just under a year. And then through several job changes, I realized that I kept getting comfortable where I was. And so one thing I would certainly say to young people is it goes back to your point. The other 2 points I'd certainly say was keep aiming high and staying positive. Because I found one thing for myself was it wasn't so much staying positive, but I always got comfortable somewhere, and I always forgot I had a building surveying degree, and I could become a building surveyor, I could become a chartered surveyor if I just put my mind to it. And I got comfortable in roles, but eventually I sort of, through stepping stones, I went from a commercial surveyor and then I got in a contractor, which was very hands-on, always on site, which was great experience. And then I moved on to finally getting a sort of what I call an actual building surveyor job at a property management firm. And then from then I'm sort of where I am now in a chartered surveyor, currently trying to complete my what's called the APC 24 training program. It's a structured training which the RICS complete, which is the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. It's an internationally renowned sort of governing body for surveyors. So I've got my test in sort of 2 weeks now. It's confirmed on the 19th. So hopefully, touch wood, I'll pass that first time, and then I'll become a chartered surveyor. And then, I've finally sort of I've got to where I set out to get to through these various stepping stones. But it's all about building that experience. I found, life is a lesson, and each role I've been in has helped get to where I am now, helped shape who I am. But yeah, I'd certainly say there's various parts in property, and that's how I got to get into where I am now as a building surveyor, and sort of always knowing that I could I could eventually get there, and by staying positive, aiming high, anyone can sort of become a chartered surveyor if that's the where their interest lies.
I love the way you talk about the aiming high and staying positive, because for young people, understanding that one step might then take you in a completely different direction, and you've got to almost, to some extent, you've got to trust your instincts and say, actually, much as it's very comfortable doing this job, actually, you know, I want to go over here. All right, you know, and it's just about them thinking about the next step and understanding that careers aren't a straight line, are they, George? They can very much go in all sorts of directions before you find the thing that really grabs you.
Yeah, certainly. The amount of people, you know, even at university, you meet various people who have taken career changes. They were, I don't know, let's say an accountant once, and you'll find a mature student at university who now wants to become a building surveyor. So yeah, your path can completely change at any point. And it's all part of life to find out where you're most, you know, where your interests lie and what you're good at, and something you can enjoy. And, you know, I've sort of eventually reached that point, but not without various hurdles and stepping stones to finally get there.
And you never stop learning. And I think that's something I've learned as an adult, is that you don't just learn at school. It's not like, right, I've done my learning, I've left school or college, that's it, I don't need to learn anything now, I don't need to study anything. It's a continual thing. And that kind of leads me on to the last question I wanted to ask you, which is, we have many young people who are maybe choosing not to go on to university, who have finished their A-levels, their BTEC, whatever they were doing, and they are waiting to go into the world of work. And they might be thinking, well, how would I end up getting somewhere like George? Or how would I just enhance my chances of getting into employment? What sort of advice would you give a young person who's maybe sitting at home in that situation now?
I would say, first and foremost, I would say during the exceptional period now, they should update their CV. I think, you know, the CV is the first thing you're going to be showing to employers, and it sets an example of, if it's a professional looking CV, that already, you know, says a lot about who you are. You spent time on it. So I'd say to, you know, young people, first, update your CV, make it look professional, and start there. Secondly, I'd say, try and get, again, it will probably be difficult during this period we're in now, but put your name out there and be confident, don't be shy, speak to people in an industry you're aware of, or speak to your family and speak to or family members or cousins, whoever they may be. I think speaking is the biggest thing to help get an idea of, you know, you can do as much research as you want into an industry, but you'll never really know what it exactly is about. Even when I came out of university, I didn't really know what being an actual building surveyor was until I started doing the practical work. So I'd say try and get that work experience. When I graduated from uni, I'd done 2 weeks work experience at Surveyors, and that gave me a real insight of actually how a chartered surveyor works. So if possible, send your CV out, try and get work experience prepared, perhaps when lockdown eases, and have them lined up ready so you can get some valuable experience, which can go on your CV. So when you do start looking roles, you can say, actually, I have got experience of working. You don't want a blank CV. You want to be able to say, yes, I've worked here, whatever it may be. Even if it's working in a supermarket, you've got experience of, you know, straight away I know you can speak and talk and with people, and we can then build upon that. And lastly, I'd probably say, try and do a bit of research into the industry. Like I say, speak to people, find out more about perhaps where your interests lie. Perhaps pick 3 industries where you think you might have an interest in, maybe construction, if it is art or fashion or accountancy, whatever it is, or music. Find out your interests, find out how you can succeed in that industry, or, you know, find out what you can do, what's out there, companies, and try and set a plan. And with that plan, I would also say set a backup plan. So, you know, if you are someone who's interested in becoming a musician, you know, I'm not saying don't follow your dreams, because perhaps you do want to become a musician, maybe you're extremely talented, you should still consider having a backup plan. Think, right, okay, if, you know, music and arts, the arts is such a saturated industry. So I think if that doesn't work, right, actually, my backup plan is, I know I'm going to work here, or here, or I am going to find a route into surveying via, maybe going through to college at a later date, or picking up, trying to get build work experience and finding an internship at a company that can take younger people on and build you up as a building surveyor or surveyor through that route. So it's all about research, finding out what something is really like, and now more than ever is time to not spend time on Fortnite, but spend time building who you are and doing the research you can to and speak to people. I'd happily speak to any student who thinks, you know what, I am interested in surveying. I just need to speak to someone. What's it about? What do you do? Can I have an in-depth discussion? How much do you get paid? What are your hours? The nitty-gritty of working as a building surveyor. I'd happily, if a student wanted to, just have an informal chat with me, or I'd be more than welcome to certainly, have a chat with them and just tell them what the industry is like from my point of view and how I done it. So
that's really valuable. That's really valuable. And I'd say, so our students watching this video, contact us at the careers department if you'd want to take George up on his great offer to tell you more about it. And we'll also make sure that we put that at the end of the video, that's something that you'd be happy to do. You mentioned the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors.
yes.
If a student is interested in that sector and they want to do some research, is that a good start point website for them to go to find out more?
Yeah, there's plenty of information on the RICS. It may bamboozle them because there is so much. One thing they could look up is routes to becoming chartered, because there's various routes. So, for example, I've got a degree, so that is one route. You have a degree, and therefore you can you apply to the RICS to become a member. You show them that you've got a degree, and then you do the 2 years minimum to slowly structured training to become chartered. Alternatively, there are routes such as 5 years experience. You may not have a degree, but you've got 5 years experience in the industry, and therefore you can still apply to become chartered. It's either 5 or 10, one of the two. But yeah, you can certainly look there. But again, speaking to people, there's the RICS is not just a government board to give guidance and information and set rules for the RICS, but they provide, part of the rules are to ensure companies provide training and CPD, chartered surveyors are about giving back and promoting. One of the rules and regulations for the RICS is promoting trust within the profession. So, chartered surveyors being able to talk to students who are interested in and giving them advice. So, I would just say, yeah, by all means, look on there, look on company websites and speak to people. I think that's one thing I didn't do. I didn't speak to anyone. I just sort of plodded along, trying to go through the motions. And, I just, if I had someone I could say, what's it like? What route should I do? Should I get this job or not? Or, how do I go about really getting into the industry? So, like I say, I'd be happy to speak to anyone who wants to have a chat about sort of getting into construction.
That would be fantastic. And I think that's something that we do say to young people is you don't realise who's around you in your family, in your family's friends, in your friends' parents, that may be in an industry that you're interested in or can just give you an insight. So that's really valuable advice, George. Thank you so much for your time.